the sidewalk. My idea was simple. Drive around trucks, take this free used furniture, store it in warehouses, and then sell it online to new incoming students who could buy it way cheaper than if they bought a new one. 100% profit margin. Brilliant. Number 2, next step scouting. I actually wrote a business plan for this idea and paid a couple grand to have the software built for it. The idea for this concept was connect kids who want to play Division II or Division III athletics in college with the college coaches who didn't have the budget to recruit. The theory is that lots of kids want to play sports in college but aren't Division I type players. But playing sports is still an important part of where they want to go to school. Figuring out how to match these players with the right coach and program seemed like a win for everybody. Parents would pay to enter their kids into our database. We'd have regional scouts, townies who go to all the games anyways, scout the players and report back if they were worth a shot. Coaches could then search our database for players in the area that fit their criteria and find when they play, watch tape, contact them, and ultimately give a look to these kids who otherwise may never have been seen. Number 3, a sports gambling newspaper. I love gambling. I'd even started a website in college called thegamblingman.com. I wonder if the person who owns that domain now knows that I once owned it. It was basically a mini blog where I offered my picks for the week to a pretty small group of friends who read it. Little did I know that would be the precursor to what the world would come to know as Barstool Sports, media giant. But back then, I just wanted to talk and write about gambling. My first memory of gambling is when my dad took me to Rockingham Park as a kid, the now defunct racetrack in New Hampshire. Even though I was only 10 years old, I would dress up like I was in the movie Goodfellas to go to the track. I wore little suspenders, a fedora, the works. Seeing the horses up close was magical to me, and the thought of turning $2 into 10 or more was exhilarating. I was hooked instantly. Once I was old enough to go to the track without my parents, I became a regular at Suffolk Downs, another dumpy little track a few miles from my hometown. In high school, I'd head over after baseball practice or after games some nights just to bet the ponies. My dad and I would take annual trips to Saratoga in the summers. That was my idea of a dream vacation, going to the racetrack and betting on horses. I loved it. And it just wasn't the ponies either. I loved all forms of gambling. In middle school, I became the school bookie of sorts. I started passing out white cards in 7th grade. To be honest, I'm not even sure if I knew what I was doing back then was illegal. For the uninitiated, a white card was a card that listed all the NFL games and you could just check off your picks. The more picks you made, the higher the odds. I charged $2 per white card, and you had to hit all your picks to win. These, of course, are the international rules of white cards. Anyways, this lasted halfway through the NFL season before word made its way up to the principal's office that I was running a bookmaking operation and he put a kibosh on it. I ended up with a week's detention. So it was no surprise to anyone that after college I flew out to Vegas and interviewed with casinos hoping to break into the big gambling business. But at each place I was told the same thing. You start as a dealer and work your way up from there. No thanks. I wasn't exactly interested in having cigarette smoke blown in my face at 9 a.m. I'd find another way in. Anyway, I called up the offshore casinos and sports books that I gambled with throughout college and asked if they were hiring. Again, I was told no by just about everybody I spoke to, with the exception of a place called Bet Jamaica. They told me they weren't hiring, but if for some reason I ever decided to start a gambling and fantasy sports newspaper, they'd be interested in advertising with me. At this time, in the internet's evolution, gambling sites were all filled with infinity pop-up ads and other malware that made you terrified that your credit card info was being stolen. Bet Jamaica was apparently looking for ways to get off the internet so they could differentiate themselves. So even though starting a gambling newspaper was the furthest thing from my mind when I started the call, by the time I hung up, I was officially in the newspaper business. In 2003, traditional newspapers were dying left and right. The magazine industry was heading off a cliff. People were increasingly choosing SportsCenter as their one-stop shop for all sports news, and print media was limping to the glue factory. Was this the ideal time to start a newspaper? Absolutely not. Did I realize it at the time? No. Did I do any research? No. Did anybody call me a moron for starting a newspaper during this time? I honestly can't remember. Would I have cared if they did? Probably not. One thing I've always been blessed or cursed with, depending on how you look at it, I truly don't care what other people say about me, or for their opinions on what I should do. It's just the way my brain's always worked. I'm not doing it to be an asshole. I just trust my instincts. I had a directive from a potential revenue stream, and I set to work envisioning how I wanted my newspaper to look and sound. Naturally, I didn't have a journalism background. I hadn't taken a single writing course in college.
To keep listening to this audiobook for free, click the link in the description. It will take you to a free Audible trial where you can listen to this and many other books for free for 30 days.